what we are trying to tell our audience is that how job also affects us. That is something which we do every day. Oh. And how we can change and bring into our lives whatever we want to do.
Are you speaking of my job as a firefighter?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Well, I did spend 12 years in the fire department 30 years ago. And yes, and had I discovered my own personal spirituality then, it would have been a completely different experience. At the time, in 1984, when I was hired, women were a novelty. We were not taken seriously, and by golly, I was serious about the job, and I wanted to be taken that way. So there were a lot of battles where I see that had I really discovered my own spirituality, I wouldn't have had to have those battles. I just didn't have the knowledge, and so that too changed me as well.
So when you were working as a firefighter, as a woman, was there any particular event which you felt like, wow, Spirit is trying to come close to me and tell me something? Can you remember of any of those stories or anything which happened to you?
Spirit kept me from sliding off the roof of a 2-story building at Stanford campus on a fire that we were fighting one day. Mm-hmm. My foot caught on the gutter and stopped me from going over the edge.
Wow. So in the first show, I talked about how I felt a hand on my shoulder and yes. I was about to fall into this ditch, and the Spirit, just like if I had taken the next step, I would have fallen down.
I knew I wasn't going to fall. I was sliding, and the captain was saying, watch her, watch her. Well, of course, watch me, but he meant grab her, grab her. Nobody was around me. But I knew, I had a feeling I was not going to fall.
So tell us a little bit about, like, firefighting is a very manly kind of job. And you, as a woman, doing all this firefighting, how did it feel? And were you felt a little discouraged from men, or were they more encouraging?
Interestingly enough, I started out as a volunteer firefighter, and one of the guys on the volunteers said, hey, Laila, why don't you go out and become a real firefighter? And I said, really, you think so? You think I can do it? And he said, well, you're doing it here. I thought, oh, okay, yeah, I guess I am. So I had the encouragement of the volunteers, and I thought I would have the encouragement of the men when I got the job. It took 3 years to get my job in the Palo Alto Fire Department. I took 15 tests in that 3-year period. It was very discouraging sometimes. I would go to a department, they would look at me and say, oh, so you want to be a firefighter, do ya? Not here. Anyway, so, and interestingly enough, I got more harassment from the men my age, not the older men. The older men, because I was 26 when I was hired, the older men were in their 50s, they were more like my fathers, whereas the younger guys probably thought about their manhood and thought, well, geez, if she can do what I can do, what am I? But I was in there because I like helping people, and I like getting dirty. I like hard work. I'm a hard worker.
So how many years did you do firefighting?
I was a career firefighter for 12 years, 12 years. I was a volunteer for 10 years.
Wow.
So all in all,
so you came from the Middle Eastern family. So how did your family react to being a firefighter?
Yes, my mother is from Cairo, Egypt. She was born and raised in Egypt. And when I told her I wanted to be a firefighter, the first thing she said to me was, but Laila, you could get hurt. I thought, well, yeah, but that's not one of my top things that I'm thinking of. I'm thinking more of helping people. And with the proper training, you don't get as hurt. So, oh, and then yes, there were specific instances. I remember in training specifically. I always told the men, you really do need to train me because it might be your butt that I have to save someday. So teach me how to drag you out of a building the right way. Anyway, the physical aspect of the job looked different when I did it. Because number one, I finesse things. I don't have this brute strength. I don't manhandle things. I don't slam things around. I do things nicely and gently, but I can do them. Taking the cap off of a fire hydrant looks different when I do it because the guys stick their butt up in the air when I squat down. It's all, the way women carry their weight is different from the way a man carries their weight. So we have to use a different technique sometimes when we want to carry around the heavy equipment. I got on a scale one day. I wanted to know how much our ladders weighed. The 24-foot extension ladder weighs 85 pounds. We are expected to raise that ladder by ourselves. And I can do it better than some of the guys.
So is there any event or a story which you can think of in the firefighting where you felt like, wow, why I'm doing this and I should not be doing this, or as a woman?
Not one event. There are many events. I stood up for equality. When I went into the fire department, we did not have separate bathrooms, locker rooms, or sleeping quarters. It was quite an issue. Many times I would end up in the mop closet to change my clothes because I couldn't find a bathroom that was available so that I could change. My locker was right next to my captain's locker. He had a habit of coming out of the bathroom, dropping his towel and putting on his uniform, and I was very uncomfortable around his being naked, so I moved my locker farther away. There were lots of things like that. There was intimidation. There was all kinds of things. I had a death threat left on my answering machine by one of my coworkers because I was raising the issue of equality in the fire department. It scared me, but nothing ever happened. I was afraid to go to the chief because I thought he would blame me for it. You know how you blame the victim. That was the air around then. But I stood up for what I believed, and what I believed was that women have right to be there. They're needed, and I wasn't going to back down, and nobody could really back me down.
I'm a very positive supporter of women empowerment, and I have made 2 feature films about women empowerment, Night of Henna and Bicycle Bride, and inviting you in this show and talking about firefighting is just amazing because this is something which not every woman would go out and pick as a career. So we are grateful to have you in the show.